There are wounds that cut deeper than any blade, and they are not made by strangers, but by those we once called friend. Betrayal has a unique sting because it comes from a place where trust once lived. Carl Jung believed that the greatest dangers to the soul do not always come from the outside world, but from the unseen shadow, the parts of human nature we refuse to acknowledge. When someone stabs you from behind, they are not only wounding your trust, but also revealing the shadow they carry within themselves. These hidden toxins in people often disguise themselves as charm, loyalty, or even love, only to later reveal their true nature. Recognizing these patterns before the knife falls is not just about protecting yourself from harm. It is about awakening to the unconscious forces that shape human behavior. In this video, we'll explore how to recognize the archetype of the betrayer, how the shadow of betrayal operates in relationships, and what it teaches us about our own soul's journey. If you've ever wondered why the people closest to you sometimes become the ones who wound you most, Jung's insights may hold the key. Jung taught that the shadow, the repressed, denied, or unconscious side of the psyche, often shows up in projection. What we fail to see in ourselves, we unconsciously project onto others, and what others repress within themselves can erupt in destructive ways. The toxic person who betrays you is often someone ruled by their unintegrated shadow. They wear the mask of loyalty, but harbor resentment, envy, or insecurity beneath it. This is why betrayal often feels so sudden. It is not a random act, but the eruption of a long-suppressed truth within them. To Jung, betrayal was not merely a social failure. It was a symbolic act that revealed the split between the conscious persona and the unconscious shadow. Those who stab others from behind are not only hiding their true intentions from you, but from themselves. Their betrayal becomes an unconscious attempt to rid themselves of feelings they cannot own. Recognizing toxic people, then, is less about reading surface behaviors and more about sensing the shadow that leaks through the cracks of their persona. The key is to notice the subtle cues, the envy disguised as praise, the loyalty that feels conditional, the smile that doesn't reach the eyes. These are not accidents, they are archetypal patterns revealing themselves. Jung's lens allows us to see betrayal not just as an act of cruelty, but as an expression of the unintegrated psyche. By learning to recognize these shadows in others, we begin to protect our energy, and more importantly, to illuminate our own unconscious patterns that attract such dynamics. There is a paradox in human nature that Jung understood well. The brightest smiles often hide the darkest shadows. Some people enter your life with warmth so radiant it almost blinds you. Excessive compliments, exaggerated friendliness, and a devotion that feels too good to be true. And perhaps it is. For beneath this polished mask, there often lurks envy, resentment, or insecurity, quietly waiting for the moment to reveal itself. Jung called this mask the persona, the face we present to the world to appear likable, admirable, or trustworthy. But when a persona becomes too perfect, too polished, it begins to serve another purpose. It shields the unacknowledged shadow behind it. In the toxic betrayer, the persona glows with light, but its brilliance is only a disguise for the storm brewing beneath. Their charm is not authenticity, it is camouflage. Imagine a serpent lying silently in the grass. It does not announce its presence, nor does it strike without purpose. Instead, it waits, cloaked in stillness, until the perfect moment to reveal its fangs. This is the nature of the betrayer's shadow, concealed, patient, and silent, until it can no longer contain itself. These are the people who shower you with praise when you succeed, but behind their compliments lingers a sharp edge. Their words seem sweet, but their eyes betray something else. A flicker of competitiveness, a tightening of the jaw, a shadow of discontent. They smile at your triumphs, yet somewhere within them, your success is experienced as their failure. and so admiration becomes laced with poison. History and myth remind us of this truth again and again. Think of Judas, seated at the very table of Christ. Not a stranger, not an enemy, but a disciple who walked closest to the divine. Betrayal, Jung would say, rarely comes from those outside the circle. It is an act born from intimacy, from the very heart of trust. The lesson, then, is not to fear every smiling face, but to look beyond the surface. Recognize when warmth feels excessive, when devotion feels rehearsed, when praise rings hollow. For often, behind exaggerated friendliness lies the shadow of betrayal. The smile that dazzles may in time reveal the dagger it conceals. Beyond the smile that conceals the shadow, the betrayer often reveals themselves in subtler ways, through the language they use, the tone they carry, and the words that linger in the air long after they have been spoken. Jung taught that projection is a common mechanism of the shadow. When someone disowns parts of themselves they cannot accept, they unconsciously attribute those same traits to others. In the toxic betrayer, this projection often takes the form of envy, disguised as concern, advice, or even humor. A colleague may compliment your success while simultaneously murmuring behind your back about how you are lucky or favored, as if your achievements diminish their own. A friend may make a passing joke that cuts more deeply than intended, an offhand remark that exposes a fissure of resentment. Envy is the poison of the soul, a green-eyed shadow that eats away at loyalty, subtly corroding trust from within. The words of the betrayer often carry a dual meaning, outwardly polite, inwardly corrosive, a reflection of the inner dissatisfaction they refuse to face. They admire you externally, but curse you internally, and the tension between what is said and what is felt is a signal of the shadow at work. The betrayer's language is a map of their unconscious, revealing the traits they secretly desire or despise, the wounds they have yet to heal, and the projections they impose upon you. By paying attention to the undertone, to the rhythm and intent behind their speech, you begin to discern the patterns of envy and projection before they escalate into overt betrayal. Jung's insight reminds us that words are not merely communication, they are windows into the psyche. Listening with awareness allows you to perceive the hidden motives and unspoken resentments that would otherwise strike without warning. In this way, the betrayer's language becomes a warning system, a subtle unveiling of the shadow before the dagger falls, and by attuning yourself to these cues, you not only protect your energy, but also cultivate the inner clarity to navigate relationships with discernment and wisdom. As the language of envy and projection reveals itself, betrayal often moves from words into the dynamics of relationships, unfolding like a shadow dance that weaves intimacy with tension. Jung recognized that betrayal is not merely an isolated act, it is archetypal, a pattern that recurs across myth, history, and the human psyche. Brutus at Caesar's side, Loki deceiving the gods. These stories echo the collapse of trust when shadow overwhelms light. In human relationships, betrayal emerges when the balance between giving and receiving is disrupted, when one person idealizes while the other secretly resents, when generosity meets hidden covetousness. The toxic betrayer often carries unresolved wounds of inferiority, unacknowledged fears, or old hurts that have never been integrated into the self. Rather than facing these shadows, they project them outward, targeting those who illuminate the gaps within themselves. The betrayal is both a dagger in the dark and a mirror, reflecting not only the betrayer's unhealed psyche, but also the illusions we may have held about connection, loyalty, or love. We may feel blindsided, wounded in ways that shake our sense of safety, but this experience is not meaningless. Jung would argue that every betrayal, no matter how painful, is a form of initiation, a symbolic invitation to awaken. It forces us to see beyond the masks, to recognize the shadows in both others and ourselves, and to discern the difference between authentic connection and illusion. The dagger that pierces trust also cuts through naivety, revealing the raw truth beneath appearances. It challenges us to confront the reality that not all who walk beside us carry light in their hearts, and in doing so, it awakens our own inner clarity, sovereignty, and discernment. Betrayal hurts because it touches our deepest vulnerabilities, but it also awakens us to the hidden currents that flow beneath human interaction. The shadow dance, though painful, is a necessary rhythm of awakening, urging us to move with awareness, to see people as they are rather than as we wish them to be, and to claim the power to protect our hearts while remaining open to the light that still exists around us. Betrayal, as Jung teaches, is an unavoidable rhythm of human interaction, yet our vulnerability to it is not fixed. It can be mitigated through awareness and the cultivation of inner boundaries. While we cannot stop the shadows from appearing in others, we can strengthen our capacity to see them before they strike, to sense the undertones of envy, projection, or concealed resentment. Patterns often repeat, and when betrayal resurfaces in our lives, it is worth asking, what part of me allowed access to this energy? Is it my desire to be liked, my habit of blind trust, or my refusal to confront the shadows within myself? Walking among humans is to walk among shadows, and awareness is the shield that allows us to navigate this terrain without being pierced. Discernment, rather than paranoia, becomes the compass. We learn to trust actions more than words, energy more than appearances, subtle cues more than performative charm. The Jungian path emphasizes the integration of our own shadow, for when we acknowledge our own envy, fear, or insecurity, we recognize it more quickly in others. This is not about moral superiority, but about psychological clarity, seeing the hidden currents in relationships without being swept away by them. The betrayer's actions are reflections of their own unhealed psyche, yet the mirror they hold up also illuminates aspects of ourselves that we have yet to face. Each encounter with betrayal becomes an opportunity to deepen self-knowledge, to strengthen the inner citadel of discernment, and to refine the boundaries that protect our soul's integrity. In this way, betrayal is not merely an attack from the outside, it is an invitation to see ourselves more clearly, to claim sovereignty over our own perception, and to act from a place of awareness rather than reaction. The ultimate protection is not avoidance, but presence, the ability to walk through life attuned to both light and shadow, recognizing deception without being deceived, sensing hidden motives without losing compassion, and carrying forward the knowledge that every wound, when met with insight, becomes a teacher rather than a prison. In seeing ourselves and others clearly, we cultivate the wisdom to navigate relationships with grace, strength, and discernment. Betrayal is the shadow made visible through another's actions, yet it is also a call to deepen self-awareness. As you move through these experiences, notice the mask of false warmth, listen closely to the language of envy, understand the archetypal dance of betrayal, and protect your psyche by integrating your own shadow. Each encounter is an invitation to sharpen your vision rather than harden your heart. With discernment, you become less naive, less vulnerable to the unconscious currents of others, and more empowered to navigate relationships without fear. You can still trust, but with open eyes, allowing compassion and wisdom to guide you. By embodying this awareness, betrayal transforms from a wound into a teacher, a mirror reflecting both the hidden shadows of others and the unacknowledged depths of your own soul. Betrayal is a knife that wounds, yet it also awakens. It cuts away illusions, revealing the hidden darkness in others and illuminating the resilience and clarity within yourself. Jung reminds us that the shadow is not to be feared but understood, and by recognizing toxic patterns in those around us, we cultivate the strength to transcend them. Trust not only in people, but in your own perception, intuition, and inner compass. Each insight becomes a step towards sovereignty, a reclaiming of the power to navigate life with awareness and grace. This is Echoes of Psyche, where we walk the path of Jung, into the shadows, into the soul, and into the wisdom within.